Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that always has, always will, and has never ever taken a break from taking you back to when Raw became war and Attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Pimpin' ain't easy.
Joe Giammatteo.
It's good to be back, and we are now back in cahoots. We are in collusion.
Say it ain't so.
God, the word cahoots. Take a drink every time they say it tonight, folks.
We got to finish the episode.
I am the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. That's right, folks. You heard me correctly. I don't know what to say about all of it. I thought that I was going to maybe just try to kayfabe it and pretend like it never happened, but I have to say it is damn good to be back here talking about Monday Night Raw and back in the groove of things. I don't know about you guys, but...
Absolutely, yeah. Feels good to be back in the saddle again.
Been too long since last time.
It has. It's been, like 5 months now? Almost half a year.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, fuck the Netflix vault. It still sucks from what I have heard, yeah.
Still have not added anything, but we have decided to soldier on without it.
Yeah, so Ryan, why don't you just give us a quick rundown on how that's working for us?
Sure. So what happened for us here at Wrasslin Raw is we were lucky enough to get in contact with our good old buddy Barry Dudensky.
The mayor.
And out of the back of his 89 Buick LeSabre, he sold us 3 copies of Coliseum home video WWF Raw 1998. So that's how we're all watching it here, because Netflix still hasn't done anything. And we hope that everyone out there listening could get their hands on their own copy. But one thing they definitely should not do is go to this website, which is www.archive.org/details/war, but in all caps, capital W, capital A, capital R, hyphen 1998. Do not go there. If you go there, you're going to find dirty, pirated material that will allow you to watch all of these 1998 Raw episodes, but you'll be a dirty pirate. So you definitely shouldn't do that. You should avoid this website at all costs. I just wanted to give it to you so you knew which website to avoid. But also remember that the war being capitalized is extremely important. Without it, you'll just go to a blank website, which is good and safe. That's where you want to go. We want to also thank listener Tim, who emailed us warning us about this dirty website to avoid at all costs. We also want to thank longtime listener UK Tommy for his comments during our hiatus. We had a couple back and forths with him. He told us what they were doing in the UK with content. So in any regards, thanks to Barry Dudensky and his Buick LeSabre, we're back at it.
Lord Thomas, the Viscount of Grimsby, always coming in clutch. As well as Barry Dudensky, apparently.
You know, who knew in 2025 that you would still need to utilize a black box that just fell out the back of a Crown Vic or a Buick LeSabre?
Yeah.
Well, good thing Dudensky's still out there.
Yeah.
Interesting times we're living in here, fellas, for more than one reason. But without further ado, let's get into it. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on July 13th, 1998. This Raw was recorded at the Continental Airlines Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and features Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. We started this off with highlights of last week's finish. That was the swerve from The Undertaker pretending to be Kane and ultimately gaining the spot of number 1 contender.
Seems like forever ago.
That was complete with commentary saturated with Vince McMahon's indignant screeching. Things kicked off with a bang, though, after the proper entrance, with the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels making his way down to the ring. His back must be doing a hell of a lot better with the amount of dry humping in the air that he was doing there. Just as the music was restarting again for the 9th time, Shawn Michaels joined commentary, saying that he was here to stay. When asked about his current condition, Shawn wasn't able to get more than 2 words out before we started to move into the next segment, so we're just going to have to pause it here. This was a very short intro segment, but I can't help but feel the irony that it consisted of Shawn Michaels returning to our screens after months off due to circumstances mostly beyond his control. I feel like I can relate to that a little bit. Joe, what did you have on our reintroduction to the main stories being told here?
Yeah, like you said there, it's a fitting episode for our return to the podcast world. We had to take a few months off, and so did Shawn Michaels. It's good to see him back, and commentary did a nice job here of letting it breathe for his entrance, because the crowd was definitely going crazy, because it's been 3-4 months since WWF fans have seen him, so that was cool to see.
Yeah, completely agree. Cool to see the HBK back, and it is very fitting for our return as well, but hopefully our return lasts longer than his does. Let's just put it that way.
We should start the next episode off with 9 full cycles of our entrance music. All right, as I said, things were moving quickly into our first match of the night. The Undertaker defeats Vader by pinfall in 4 minutes and 38 seconds. Now, before we really dig into this, Ryan, have we heard from Vader lately on his current status?
He did. I think because we were gone for so long, he wanted to put in a quick call to us just to give us a welcome back and a little bit of update on his status. So
good.
I'm going to play you his voicemail here for you guys.
Thank you.
Maybe Vader time's over. I'm nothing but a big piece of shit.
No.
Big fat piece of shit.
Okay.
We're in the same place.
It's been a few months.
We thought maybe it would have changed.
A lot of snacking and...
He's back, fellas. Bigger and fatter.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. You hate to see it, but...
You do.
Back in the match here, commentary really did a great job of reiterating where we're at with The Undertaker, repeating his number 1 contender
Cahoots.
status. Cahoots. God, I'm traumatized by the word cahoots. Anybody who's spent any time in the modern education system in the past 2 years, there's this fucking game called Cahoots that they play with you, and it's terrible. This was PTSD inducing. I enjoyed Shawn Michaels making a Seinfeld reference during Vader's entrance, because I deserve to enjoy something while that shit's going on. Before the match in the ring could even get going, though, Hellfire and Brimstone came on out. Kane, Mankind, Paul Bearer to, I guess, watch the match from the bottom of the ramp. Once things got going, I had to note that it always astounds me how fast The Undertaker, as a big man, can appear to be, especially contrasted against the slow, plodding pace that Vader sets. Sloppy, also. I forgot to include the word sloppy when describing Vader. You could feel Taker's right testicle explode, getting Vader up into a pretty well-worked chokeslam, and then the left testicle went, getting Vader up into the tombstone to get the pin and the win. Referee Earl Hebner, probably the worst referee to ever lay out on the mat, and that is saying something after watching Bronco Lubitsch, gave a really slow count on this pin, and it immediately pissed me off. Felt like it set the tone for my view on referees throughout the rest of this episode. That's not where this ended, though. There was a swerve as Mankind went into the ring with a chair, but Kane stopped Mankind, took the chair, and then nailed Vader in his surgically repaired shoulder, just for good measure to scoot him on out of the ring there.
Do you know why Kane would help The Undertaker? What would be the reason for that?
There's only one word that I can think of. Cahoots. The whole deal really heats up the speculation that Kane and The Undertaker are in cahoots in planning the downfall of champion Steve Austin. So, Guys, I listened to our last real show to get ready for this, to get freshened up on what's happening after our sabbatical. And in that, I had made the comment that I may be needing to moderate my expectations here in the summer of 98. There may be a mid-year slump in the engaging stories, and this first match kept me in that mindset. I don't like saying an Undertaker match was meh, but here we are. Joe, what'd you think of our opening match?
I think the match itself was just meant to be a storyline for the cahoots, really, so it was worthless. But JR at the beginning, when The Undertaker's making his entrance, JR broke kayfabe a little bit, and I guess it's fitting with this, like, borderline American Badass version of The Undertaker that we're getting right now. Mr. Sweatpants, if you guys remember.
Yes.
We're fresh off of that. So JR broke kayfabe. He was saying The Undertaker is a guy that commands respect and has earned the respect of every WWF superstar. And that's just something that you hear about Undertaker from everybody that has ever worked with him. And Shawn Michaels even did a nice job of putting over The Undertaker, saying that The Undertaker is always number one contender if he wants to be. So again, there's more of that kind of backstage respect showing up on live TV. And it's Vader, so it's bad. This match is bad, but they're in cahoots, Kane and Undertaker, and they're colluding.
Now, speculation. That's speculation at this point.
I will give Vader some credit here. I think he did a nice job at helping The Undertaker with the choke slam and helping him out with the tombstone. So again, there's that respect that people have for Undertaker.
Obviously, the match had Vader, so it's going to not be great. That's been the story for a good year and a half now since Vader has come back. But to be honest, this was just a job out for Vader. He didn't really do much. He just got his ass kicked by The Undertaker. So I guess that was fitting that Vader was just out here to get jobbed. I did like, though, that Shawn Michaels brought up the fact that nobody last week said anything about The Undertaker and Mankind's Hell in the Cell match. And he decided that he was going to bring it up and just talk it up. Talk about how both guys involved were phenomenal. The match was something that no one's ever seen before. I thought Michaels did a good job of putting over Hell in the Cell, since up until this episode, they avoided. I don't know if because of the violence thing or whatever, but that was good to hear from him. And Joe, as you very correctly put it, this wasn't about Vader getting in the ring and wrestling. This was about Kane and The Undertaker being in cahoots. And I thought it drove that point home. So in the cahoots way of thinking, it did a good job. But Vader being in the ring is always going to bring you down.
Yeah. I'm trying to rack my brain here, and Ryan, as the president of the Carpenters Union, you may have a better answer for me on this. Has there been a bigger, fatter, sloppier jobber ever that we've watched, at least?
We had Duke the Dumpster Drozy. He's close.
Vader's got like 300 pounds on him, though.
Oh, Mantar? Did I do Mantar? I don't think I did him.
You may have. No, it's all academic anyway.
He's top 3 for sure.
Okay. I thought so. I knew he had to be up there. So immediately after that last match, we got a view of Edge creeping around up in the nosebleeds. He was stepping out of people's way as they were going to the concession stand, or
looking for someone's neck to break.
It's the last time we'll see him, right? I didn't miss it. This is the last time we're going to see him this episode, so this was completely fucking useless in every way. After that, we got the reminder here that the next pay-per-view, Fully Loaded, is 2 weeks away. And that was it for the mid-match segment. We very quickly moved on to our next match.
Hey, watch it. That's my career.
God, I love hearing that sound of the guy going down. Woo-woo-woo. Fucking satisfaction. Bart Gunn defeats Bob Holly by judge's decision in 3 rounds in a Brawl for All match.
I think you should say their names They say the right names here.
Bodacious.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. Bodacious, what was...
Bombastic
Bob
Bombastic
and Bodacious Bart.
Yeah.
There you go. How could you forget that?
Well, so we're not kayfabing this. This is real. guys. I don't know if you've been told that.
Well,
in the
that's how
past,
they
but
announced
this Brawl
them,
for
though.
All is real.
Well, that's why they came out in different attire. I don't know. They came out just in boxers, it looked like here, both of them.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. So this started off with the news that Jim Cornette has resigned from being manager of the new Midnight Express because they chose to join this spectacle, which I thought was funny because that sounds like something that Jim Cornette would say and has probably said multiple times in any one of the hundreds of Brawl for All interviews he's given in the past 25 years.
If it's got anything to do with Vince Russo.
For those of you that might have forgotten, and I wouldn't blame you, yes, these two are in a tag team together, and they are now fighting each other for real in the ring. Bob probably shouldn't have started this off by antagonizing Bart Gunn because the Southpaw Haymakers came out early. And of course, the crowd booed during the first round break. I swear I overheard Bob Holly's corner coach telling him to just give up and cut his fucking hair. Bart won that first round 5-0. Midway through the second round, Bob was starting to look a bit purple around the face. He had gotten spun around, literally spun around by a couple of dingers.
Like he got spun around into the wall during the snowball event.
Snowball derby, yeah.
Yeah.
The derby. You can tell somebody is not going to do well in this format when they turn their head away while throwing a punch. Bob Holly couldn't even be bothered to watch and see where his punch was going. It's like he was flinching away from the hit before it even landed. I also love hearing JR try to justify anything at all about this. It really shows his skill as an announcer and as a salesman, the fact that he can muster up this much energy for this and sound sincere while doing it. We got the news that Bart Gunn advances here by the time things were done, which I think is the first time there's been any kind of mention of any kind of brackets or tournament system happening here. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. We don't have any further details, but this is the first time anybody has mentioned advancing. Surprise, surprise, Bob Holly is the sore loser and attacked Bart after the decision, causing a flood of officials into the ring, and then we quickly moved away. So, just pause it here. I know that the guy could kick my ass 6 ways to Sunday, but this really made Bob Holly look like a fucking pussy. Ryan, what did you think of this latest Brawl for All installment?
Yeah, Bob Holly did not look very great here. He got his ass kicked by Bart Gunn, which you always hear that Bob Holly was one of the tough guys back there, that he was someone you didn't want to fuck with, but I guess not in just a straight up boxing match, though. Bart Gunn took over from the beginning, and it stayed that way the whole time. But like every other Brawl for All we've seen so far, nobody fucking cares. This was just boring and stupid to watch. In the second round, Bob Holly starts to try and punch Bart Gunn in the stomach, like Apollo Creed trying to cut down Drago in Rocky IV. And Bart Gunn basically said he dies, and kicked the shit out of him. At one point, towards the end, Shawn Michaels on commentary calls Bart Gunn a big old raw bone cowboy. I don't know what exactly that means, but I wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was a funny term for him. But all around, just the straight drizzling shits brought to you by Vince Russo yet again.
Yeah, JR basically announced the death of the new Midnight Express, and that's going to be my highlight later, so I'm already spoiling that. This is the first time that we've seen Bart Gunn in the Brawl for All. We know that he was eventually the winner of the competition. But I gotta say, it's watching him now for the first time in this tournament, it's not surprising that he ended up being the winner, and it's also not surprising that he got knocked the fuck out by Butterbean.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain that, but it's just what I was feeling when I was watching it. And I have to say, too, I like the pull apart they did at the end. It's not going to be a gripping story by any means, but I think it's good for these two. I think the new Midnight Express was total garbage.
It needed to die.
It needed to die, and they need to get away from it, and it looks like they're doing that, which is good.
Yeah, completely agreed, especially on your point about Bart and just the way that he looked here. And I know what you mean. I can't think of a good analogy for it either, but watching
just
this, you
like
can see it.
Yeah, like no footwork, but still throwing hard punches.
Yeah, he looked like he could drive fucking nails with some of those fucking dingers he was putting on Bob.
Right.
I think that's the best way to explain what you were meaning there. Like, he looks like he could throw a punch and take a punch, but he's still not a trained boxer.
Yeah. So last week, the July 6th episode of Raw, because that was last week. Nothing has happened since then. Joe, you had noted to us that the version of it that we watched on The Cock had edited out the D-Generation X parody of The Nation, obviously for its use of blackface. Well, our news sources don't have that kind of editing. Thank you, Mr. Dudinsky. And we got a review of that parody here. This was mostly in still frames. Triple H as the Croc, Road Dogg as Belo Brown, X-Pac as Mizark Henry, which I thought was just lazy as hell. Billy Gunn was the Gunfather, and Chyna was just herself. But the show stealer was Jason Sensation as Owen Hart, which we got a very good recap of in moving pictures, if you will. And this week, we've got the Nation's response to that. So we went to the Nation backstage while Jason Sensation joined commentary to give some other imitations, including Bret Hart, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He did a really great job with all of them.
He did. I also especially loved when he did Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels saying, "Is that some mid-carder?"
Some mid-carder, yeah. After that, we went back to the Nation. Everybody there gave their 2 cents about the impersonations and the parody. It felt a little forced. Things fizzled until Owen Hart decided to come out and slap the piss out of Jason Sensation, even threw a couple dukes at the King there trying to pull Jason Sensation out of his chair. And Jason Sensation must have chomped on a blood capsule, I hope, because he got some color out of this. His mouth was pretty red on the inside there. DX came out to rescue Jason Sensation, and JR informed us that we are going to have a match involving the Nation and DX coming up. So we're going to pause it here. I'm glad we got to see a little of the parody that we missed, because I remember back then as a teenager thinking that Jason Sensation was the funniest part out of all of it, and that's the part that we got this pretty comprehensive review of. I think that held up really well. Ryan, what'd you have on the segment?
Yeah, as you stated, Jason Sensation did a great job of imitating really everyone he did. Owen, he keeps on going back to because he does a really good job of Owen, especially the woohoo at the end part.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, that was good to see. When we go back to the Nation and The Rock talking, man, this was just every sound clip that you could smash into this. We got The Rock saying jabroni and smell what he's cooking, People's Champ, the Godfather saying pimpin' ain't easy, D'Lo Brown saying you better recognize. We were getting all of the quotes here, so that was cool, but it was just boilerplate, hey, we didn't like what you did, we're gonna kick your ass type stuff, but really feels like we are deep in the Attitude Era when you hear all of these sound bites, though.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of Jason Sensation and his impressions of wrestlers, and this could have gone really, really bad. They're bringing in what Ryan would call a civilian off the streets to do this, and he did an amazing job here, especially selling to Owen Hart. To me, it looked very real. And it also gave DX a good opportunity to get over and make the babyface saving this 20-year-old kid, because that's all he is.
He's just a baby.
He's just a kid. Yeah, so I thought this segment was very well done.
Agreed, especially with his selling. So at one point, Owen Hart put Jason Sensation in the sharpshooter, and the way that he was just flopping around in that looked great. It really made Owen look enormous, too, because of how small Jason Sensation is.
Hey, he's just a kid.
Just a little baby, yeah.
He is. All right, well, as I said, that segment was taking us into our next match. DX, that's X-Pac and Triple H with Chyna, defeats the Nation, Owen Hart and The Rock, by pinfall in 6 minutes and 30 seconds. During entrances, we got video footage of Jason Sensation being dragged up the ramp. I thought that was funny. And it was great to finally get to see some WWF quality wrestling here after so long. We sure as hell hadn't got it in the episode so far. And Try and X-Pac, they looked great double teaming. Owen and X-Pac looked great against each other. I was content to just sit back and watch this match. X-Pac looked especially good in his rally up against The Rock coming up from the corner. That was a really great series. And ultimately, X-Pac got the pin on The Rock, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Triple H got tagged in at all in this match.
I think you're right.
Funnily enough, guys, all I could think of while watching this match was WCCW and the stark difference in style. Like, I feel like I could write a book about the way that the business evolved from January of 82 to July of 98. So many things different in what I would consider a good match here versus the matches that I were considering good matches. Not that there were that many of them in the couple episodes that we watched of WCCW. So I just thought that was funny. Suffice to say, overall, I enjoyed this match. Joe, what'd you have on it?
Yeah, I thought this was a really good match. I thought there were some pretty good near falls in this match to make it pretty exciting for just a normal tag team match with no titles on the line or anything like that. X-Pac giving us his finisher, I think that's the X Factor that he does there, which I've always liked that move, especially for someone his size, because you can basically do it on anybody.
Yeah, it's a good move for him. His other one, too, the Bronco Buster, same thing. You do it on anyone.
Yeah, the X Factor is like, it's almost like a pedigree, just a different style of applying it in some ways. But X-Pac deserves so much more credit than he gets, in my opinion. Rey Mysterio always gets the credit for being the successful cruiserweight, but X-Pac was so good and believable in the ring, even for his smaller size.
Even his 1-2-3 kid.
Right.
And I completely agree with both of you. This was a very entertaining match to watch. And really, like I was just talking about in the segment before, this is just classic, right in the middle, attitude era wrestling. Look at the people involved here. Every single one of them is a blue chipper, including the fucking escorts.
Yeah.
Everyone here. Most of the match was The Rock and X-Pac. That was who did the bulk of it, and I thought they looked great together. Everything they were doing was fast-paced, entertaining. This was a classic Raw episode, I thought. This is the type of match you think of when you think back to 98 WWF. And then, surprisingly, The Rock, he goes for the people's elbow, and at this point, the moment he telegraphs it, the crowd goes crazy. So he is really starting to rise. I know we talked about before how he's getting there, but the moment he puts his hand on the elbow pad, you start to hear the crowd go crazy. But I thought the highlight was The Rock allowed X-Pac to get a clean victory on him. There's no shenanigans really here. X-Pac just catches him with the X Factor and rolls him up for the 1-2-3. So I was surprised by that ending, but pleasantly surprised. I thought that was a good ending.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. This was one of the best matches of the episode, I thought.
They've ignored the fact that Shawn Michaels was in DX at one point. He's on commentary, but they didn't mention. I thought that was weird. We have Triple H and X-Pac in the ring and Shawn Michaels on commentary.
Happened.
Yeah. This is definitely a big pretend it never happened. So they clearly have no plans for him to rejoin that group anytime soon, obviously.
Well, we got a view of Miss Jackie after this, oiling up Mark Marrow in the locker room. Miss Jackie was looking fine as hell. My excitement level immediately dropped as Sable came down to the ring, and JR reminded us that we are going to have that bikini contest at the next pay-per-view.
Talk about fully loaded.
Unfortunately, Sable joined commentary, and we went into our next match. Steve Blackman defeats Mark Marrow with Jacqueline by pinfall in 2 minutes and 9 seconds. I feel like this is... Like, what are some of the older examples, like Triple H and Goldust? I feel like this is the fucking 40th time we've seen Steve Blackman and Mark Marrow. We got reminded of these guys' terrible Brawl for All meetup, which was one of the earlier matches a couple weeks ago, I think. And I don't know if it's just like the time we've spent away. Maybe I needed that break, but Sable sounded minimally less robotic in this.
Oh.
Like somebody poured a couple shots of schnapps in her before she came out, loosened her up a little bit, something. But she sounded remotely human.
Like, oh my God, there's a person in there.
Yeah, I was impressed by that.
It was like the Tin Man. Someone came along with the oil can and put a couple drops of oil in between her cheeks.
I don't think it was oil, and I don't think it was her cheeks. I think it was a hell of a lot more than a couple drops. Breast implants, silicone is what I'm talking about. All right. And through an anticlimactic series of events, Blackman ended up getting the pin, but let's face it, the whole point of this match was to highlight Sable and Jackie's feud and remind us that we're going to get those two in bikinis at the pay-per-view. Joe, I almost hesitate to even call this a match because we had just as much, if not more, focus on Sable and Jackie interacting than we did the action in the ring. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, I agree. This match is useless. It's just to highlight Sable and Jackie's jugs, basically. Yeah. And Jackie does Sable a big favor and crotches herself on the ropes in heels, by the way. Jackie goes up to the top rope in heels and does that move, which is pretty impressive. So give her credit for that. I don't know if that was really going to advance the story because all we care about is them in bikinis. So they can try to beat each other up. Nobody cares.
Yeah, this was unfortunate for Mark Marrow and Steve Blackman because this match had absolutely nothing to do with either one of them wrestling and only about tits. That's what this match was about. Yeah. Everyone involved in any match that involves Sable is just to put her over. Goldust and Luna, both casualties of it. Now Blackman and Marrow, Marrow's continue with his eternal punishment of always having to put Sable over, but that's anyone involved now. Like I've said for probably 5-6 months now, is if you are stepping in the ring in the vicinity of Sable, you're being buried for her cleavage. And that's sad for a lot of good wrestlers who are being overshadowed or eclipsed by two giant melons.
It's so funny that you put it that way. As soon as you said that, listing the other people that are victims of all of this, the first thing I thought of was Sable in a car driving into a crowd, and like she runs over Luna, she runs over Goldust, but Mark Marrow is the one poor bastard that gets trapped in the wheel well and drugged.
Yeah, he's stuck.
He gets
stuck underneath.
Just ongoing road rash, stuck, wedged up in there, screaming.
Please stop.
All right. But yeah, tits all over the place. Backstage, after that, we got a view of DX having a powwow in the locker room. That was followed by Paul Bearer giving advice to Kane and Mankind. Apparently, we're going to have a tag team championship defense, which is our next match. Kane and Mankind, with Paul Bearer, defeat the New Age Outlaws, Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg, by pinfall in 5 minutes and 9 seconds to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. The Outlaws did their typical entrance. That's still catching on. People haven't quite caught the early parts of it. Road Dogg does tend to change that up a teensy bit sometimes here and there, but the crowd picks it up about halfway through and they chant right along with it. We got reminded that the New Age Outlaws won the championship, or the tag team championships, from the Legion of Doom back in November of 97, a full 8 months before this moment, but it feels like 84 years since the LOD were relevant. Things got stacked up even more when the lights went out and the bell tolled. The Undertaker made himself present at ringside to observe the goings-on. And things cruised along. Not great, not terrible, up through to the point where The Rock and Owen Hart started to stroll down the ramp, pausing about halfway down to scout the field. The other half of DX did end up appearing to tussle with the Nation on the ramp. And that was all a distraction, though, allowing D'Lo Brown to sneak in from the opposite side, hit the Road Dogg with a beautiful 5-star frog splash, complete with chest protector, which
dubious
set up the tombstone for Kane. That was followed by the pin and the win. Kane and Mankind, now the tag team champions. Once again, I can't help but wonder how that championship belt fills the hole in Kane's soul that was dug by years of psychological neglect. So I didn't think this match was bad, but for me, it was really all about that finish. That was a really well-executed finish where everyone was in the right place at the right time. The timing worked out perfectly. I loved how it was done. Ryan, what'd you have on this?
Yeah, I agree. The ending was good, and really, I enjoyed the whole match. I thought this was laid out perfectly. Again, I'm falling back to what I said before. This is another classic Attitude Era match. You have the New Age Outlaws, Mankind, and Kane involved here. Just all heavy hitters. And I thought they did a good job, but especially the ending, as you highlighted, Bartlett, really helped put this over the top. Billy Gunn, again, gives one of his fantastic pile drivers to Mankind. I know, Joe, you've brought up that spike pile driver he gives, and it looks good every time he does it.
Yeah.
But then D'Lo Brown comes in, nails the splash on Road Dogg. Kane and Mankind pick up a victory and walk away with the belts, which I remembered that it happened, but I still think it was very entertaining to watch 25 years later. I thought this was a good match. I loved pretty much every moment of it.
Yeah, same for me. And it starts with the Road Dogg's amazing intro. Something that we can't take this for granted now, because the 2025, these crowds are just too involved, in my opinion, in these shows, especially like in Europe. But this shit was fun back in the day because nobody else was really doing it. So this was fun back then to watch, and it's fun still, even though they basically do the same thing every time. It's still just great to see those crowds just loving it. And as far as the match goes, I thought it was very well done. I thought that there was a lot going on here. You have a title change on Raw, which rarely happened back then. Remember, Kane was like basically on his way to being Jobber of the Year. So it helps elevate Kane and Mankind by giving them the title, and it doesn't make the Outlaws look weak because of the interference from D'Lo, and it helps keep that DX versus the Nation of Domination feud going. So it's doing a lot of things, which I thought was cool. Weird that this didn't close out the show, but we'll talk about that later and how much that the end of this show pissed me off.
It's funny you bring that up, Joe, what you were saying about the amount of fan involvement here, this being just right. And I was thinking about that, not during this match, but one of the other matches during this episode. This was kind of like, not this match, but this era, this time was the sweet spot. You had just the right amount of internet, just the right amount of television distribution, just the right amount of pretty much talent, pretty much everything that came together to create the Attitude Era. And it got me thinking, like, the more nowadays we have more television in terms of shows on TV and the length that those shows air. We've got more internet. The fans are all smart fans now, whereas it was only a basement full of nerds back then. And it has obviously been detrimental to wrestling over the past 25 years.
It's funny because I feel like the jump the shark moment was what with Stone Cold. What? The crowd just constantly saying what about everything. I feel like that was when it started to become just too much involvement. Mm-hmm. And we're a few years away from that. What is that, about 2000, 2001 that starts?
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see that, though, in real time, watching
what?
This. Mm-hmm. Next up, we were backstage with Triple H, China, and the Road Dogg. They were there with Vince McMahon, telling him that his referees fucking suck, which is something that we've been saying for the past 5 years.
I saw your sleeves cut. Get out there.
Yeah, this is a very formal complaint, though.
Yeah. That was, of course, in regard to the sneaky loss that the New Age Outlaws just took. And in a surprising turn of events, both teams got the jobber treatment as we went into our next match. Kai and Tai, that's Dick to Go, Men's Tio, and Sho Funaki with Yamaguchi-san defeats Taka Michinoku with Too Much. That's Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor by pinfall in 3 minutes and 39 seconds in a 6-man tag team match. Huh.
Who cares about the match? Just move on to the end.
Well, I've got some notes here, not a ton. This is the quarterly reminder that Taka Michinoku is the light heavyweight champion, so we'll bring that up again 3 months from now. Right away, there were hints of the son of Lawler and Jerry Lawler's hatred of all things foreign at the beginning of this. Thankfully, they did not dwell on that. Dick to go was the only standout to me here. That's not saying much. Referee Earl Hebner was comically inept in a finish that could be called disorganized at best, which I just took as support for maybe an ongoing third-level weak referees angle, maybe. Too much and Taka did not get along by the end of this, with things getting physical between the teammates before and after the finish. That's not where this ended, as the big Valboski, Val Venus, came out to remind us that there's an issue going on with him and Yamaguchi-san. I loved Yamaguchi-san's facial expressions in the ring while Yamaguchi-san was pretending to understand what the hell Val was saying. The long and the short of all of this, though, is Val wanted to apologize to Yamaguchi-san, and did that in the only way that he knew how, through the visual medium of pornography. This was filmed in what looked like a hotel room and starred Val alongside Mrs. Yamaguchi-san. Oh, Mr. Yamaguchi-san had to be restrained in the ring as Val closed it out. So, I think, in total, this match and its aftermath, I would just call it fucking gross. That includes the ring. That includes the ring action. Val Venus is grunting and laughing.
The cuckold video.
The cuckold video. Poor Mr. Yamaguchi-san, physically restrained there in the ring by Dick to go. Ryan, what did you think of this?
The match itself, again, forgettable. It really didn't matter. This was all a setup for the Val Venus Yamaguchi-san spot at the end here. I did want to point out, though, this continues the Taka. Anytime he gets involved with someone, that storyline lasts for 6 months, and that's all he wrestles. And fittingly, the last opponent he had was in there with him, Brian Christopher. So that was the last person that spent like 6 months in a story with him. But once we get to the end and we get Val Venus in bed with Yamaguchi-san's wife, I just wanted to point out that this audio clip is from this video. That is where this one came from. So every time you hear that audio clip, it's him lifting up the sheets, looking at Yamaguchi-san's wife's head, asking if she found the remote or whatever the fuck he says there. But yeah, very raunchy. We are getting knee deep into the Attitude Era now with raunchy shit like this. We're showing porno now on television.
Yeah, it's too much. Man, Kai and Tai just gets zero reaction from the live crowd when they were announced. Absolutely zero heat for this group right now. They got to do something about that. And yeah, Val Venus, this is classic storytelling with their porn star gimmick character. So this was funny to watch, and super creepy moaning and grunting and laughing. Just, man, it is wild. It's too much.
This storyline right here is what Val Venus is probably best known for.
Right.
Yeah. How is it possible that an audio clip just sounds humid?
The breathing, the heavy breathing.
You gotta
and moaning.
wipe your glasses just listening to this.
It sounds moist.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to eat Skittles in high humidity. They're going to melt all over your hands.
Yeah,
you'll
stain
have
you.
colors all over you.
Yeah.
Backstage again to Vince McMahon, who will be joining us in the ring after the Skittles Slam of the Week, which was a really great replay of The Undertaker cleaning house last week. We got to hear the clips of He Can't Defend Himself and Who's Your Daddy D-Lo, both of which I called out in our episode last week, so it was good to hear those again.
Last week.
Yeah. We came back to the ring with Vince McMahon climbing the ring stairs. Vince started off by introducing the most demonic, twisted soul in the history of the WWF. And it's not the guy that was killing cable pullers with lightning bolts and committing murder on television repeatedly. That's not the most twisted soul in the history of the WWF. It's this babyface here that we've got. And he introduced him as if we haven't seen The Undertaker like 3 fucking times already tonight. I thought this got awkward as Vince took the opportunity to just totally upbraid The Undertaker for various reasons, recent actions The Undertaker has taken. The Undertaker just stood there and took it. I don't know, just something about this was like, for what amounts to a verbal reprimand from the boss, The Undertaker was like right at the top of the ramp, ready to go to come down and take it, and then just stood here rolling his eyes and like, I don't know. It was just something really funky about it. We finally got to the ultimate question, though, Vince asking if The Undertaker is in cahoots with his brother Kane, which The Undertaker responded to, saying that Vince can go to hell. But then the glass broke. Stone Cold Steve Austin came down for the biggest crowd pop of the evening so far. Now it was Stone Cold's turn to talk at The Undertaker, with Taker once again just standing there and taking it. Bottom line there was that Stone Cold wanted to know, is Stone Cold going to be with The Undertaker or against The Undertaker at Fully Loaded? Let's not forget that it's Kane and Mankind versus Stone Cold and The Undertaker in the main event at the next pay-per-view. So Stone Cold's got that on his mind. But then DX came down to the ring, and I don't know if we've talked about an interview turning into a schmoz before, but this felt like it. They were there to propose a deal. The New Age Outlaws get a rematch with a referee in the ring, and then both The Undertaker and Stone Cold as special enforcers outside the ring. With that, everyone will get answers as to where The Undertaker's allegiance lies. Vince, of course, accepted, and that was it. That capped off this segment, and while I thought it was, the whole thing I thought was just a really fucking clumsy way to get there, the end result I thought was really interesting, and I thought was some good storytelling coming up with this way to prove The Undertaker's loyalties. We will indeed find out where his loyalty lays if he helps Kane out in that rematch. Joe, I'm sure you were quite happy with this girthy sports entertainment non-wrestling segment. What did you have on it?
Normally I do like these segments. I like these segments much more than wrestling, for sure, but I didn't like this. I'm not into the Undertaker versus Austin angle that they're doing. I think it's, I don't know, I think it's the least interested I've been in what's going on with Stone Cold Steve Austin up to this point. There's just too many moving parts, I think, because you have Kane and Undertaker and you have DX now in the mix. Vince talking to the way that Vince was talking to The Undertaker, like you said, like a kind of like reprimanding him. It was almost like Vince was talking to him in like a Phil Donahue style.
Yes.
I remember like seeing old episodes of Phil Donahue and you'd be watching it and just be like, wow, chill out, dude. Like,
now
what's your
you
problem?
say you're not in cahoots with your brother.
Also,
But the blood test says...
Speaking of cahoots, isn't it weird that like you have The Undertaker and Kane who are like these demonic murdering characters, and Vince is there asking him if he's in cahoots with with this other demonic murderer? Like, it's just so out of place, I think. Like, it's very odd angles that they're trying to pull here. So I did not like this segment.
For me, the biggest problem here is that you're trying to set up a match between the company's two biggest baby faces.
Yeah.
Up until this point, anyone that Stone Cold has been involved with, I wanted to see Stone Cold kick their ass. I don't want to see him kick The Undertaker's ass, at least not yet. You haven't done the heel turn. The Undertaker isn't bad yet. I know we are going to get some more classic matches between Undertaker and Stone Cold, but that's going to be during the Ministry of Darkness ages, and it feels a little bit more fitting. Where right now, I agree with you, it's just kind of like, well, I don't care or really want to see him face The Undertaker. To your point, Bartlett, it was a schmoz interview here. They just kept on coming out, and it just felt like this was just a bunch of moving parts to try and get us to this rematch that we're going to finish out this Raw with. And with doing that, we're also going to try and pull in The Undertaker and Stone Cold. We want to get McMahon involved. There was just too much happening here for it to make sense.
Like I said in my notes there, a really fucking clumsy way to get there. But again, I think it's a good way to answer that question that is the theme of this episode. It's a good way to bring the episode's story if you will, to a close sometime here at the end. But I'm also really glad that you both brought up this whole Stone Cold Undertaker thing. I'm not going to dwell on it right now. We'll talk about it later on, but you may have helped me clarify a couple things for myself. So we'll just keep it moving here. Because next up, we got a disturbing view of what awaits us in our next match.
Bro, this is a brawl for all. This is a shoot, not wrestling. Bro, it's boom, 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 boom. Just look at it logically. Does it make any sense?
Certainly does not.
No. Especially this one. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Dan Severn defeats the Godfather. I guess he should have been billed as Charles Wright here. By points in round 3 in a Brawl for All match. The boring chant started in the first round. Severn won that one 5-0 in points. Dan was being shithead in this. He was doing takedowns and then refusing to break holds. I think that he was being a bitch and was trying to burn through the clock by doing that. I'm not sure.
He's your boy, Dan Severn.
Nah, we're not in cahoots.
Yeah, he did break that.
I disavowed him. Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Your boy.
My boy.
The booing got louder at the end of the second round, and by the time the second round break was over, the "We Want Wrestling" chant was going. Severn got declared the winner, and unfortunately, we got replays of what amounted to Severn acting like he was in a slap fight there in the ring anytime he tried to throw punches. By God. Once again, I'm dumbfounded by the unwillingness to listen to the audience here. It's not like there aren't signs that this is unpopular. You can't ask for more clear, direct communication than this. We could all hope to be this efficient as communicators, as the wrestling fans are during Brawl for All matches, but we're just not going to fucking listen to them. Joe, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I agree. We should be listening to the people of New Jersey. That's where this is, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Dan Severn's mixed martial arts background is, but I'm guessing it does not involve any striking.
No.
Because his punches are fucking horrible. I guess he's smart for taking the Steve Blackman approach early on, where he's just trying to do a bunch of takedowns, but they were so bad looking. And it could be because the Godfather is maybe too big compared to Blackman was up against Mark Mara, who's much smaller than the Godfather. But Dan Severn does a decent job of dodging punches, but man, his striking is terrible. And another "We Want Wrestling" chant is never good if you're going to keep doing this shit. And man, Severn just sucks. And how did he even get the win in this is what I don't understand. But the fans booed the shit out of this at the end, and rightfully so.
This was terrible. Just shit all around. Very boring. I agree with the fans. We want wrestling. And I'm not going to spend really any more time talking about this Brawl for All useless match. I'm just going to bring up that the audio clip of Vince Russo saying this is a brawl for all, not wrestling. Boom, 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 boom. That was from a podcast that he did just a few months ago. And I listened to the 2-hour-long podcast, and he tries to defend the brawl for all at one point, saying, oh, we had all these people involved that were big names. And he says that he thought the Godfather was going to win because he had, I guess, a little bit of amateur boxing experience, and he was big and known as a big fighter. And this is where I really want to hammer Vince Russo on. He then says, and I thought it would be great for the company because the Godfather was huge with the fans and everyone loved him. And yes, I agree, Vince, that is the case later down the road.
Yeah.
But the fans don't give two flying fucks about the Godfather at this point. He's completely unknown, and he just took the Godfather name on like a week or two ago. So Vince Russo, you're a fucking liar, and you're just making up bullshit years and years later to try and justify your shitty ass brawl for all. But that's besides the point. This match was the drizzling shits, and we should move on.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's go then into our final match of the night. Kane and Mankind versus the New Age Outlaws ends in a no contest in 8 minutes and 7 seconds in a WWF Tag Team Championship match. Through entrances, the only energy to come from the crowd was when Stone Cold got introduced out, and Steve came out carrying an igloo cooler full of Steve Weisers. That was good to see. And I didn't really take a lot of notes, at least up to about halfway through this, because there just wasn't anything noteworthy happening. It wasn't bad, it's just nothing stood out to me. That was up until referee Mike Chioda got bumped in the corner twice. Pretty rough looking bump.
Destroyed.
Pretty rough. I gotta hand it to him.
Taking that huge Mick Foley ass.
Yeah, I was pretty, I winced a little bit, but I'm good on you, Mike Chioda, for getting in there. That bump, it set up the inevitable confrontation between all of the major players here, with The Undertaker appearing to attempt to help Kane.
Cahoots!
And not just appearing is a bit too soft. He got in there and he definitely tried to help Kane. And with DX and the Nation coming out to join the fray, things devolved into a true schmoz as we faded to black. All in all, guys, I thought this was a decent enough end to the episode. Not too great, not too terrible. There wasn't anything glaringly wrong with it, in my opinion, but I think, and this is where I'm going to tie it back to what you guys were saying before about Steve Austin and The Undertaker. I think my problem is that I just don't care about the stories that are being put front and center in front of us.
Well, sure, but I think the reason you don't care is because, like, there's no compelling reason for you to want Stone Cold to kick Undertaker's ass.
Well, right, but so there's that part of it, which is why I thought it was great that you guys brought it up, because I hadn't even honestly thought about it in that way. I've been looking at this whole thing in this episode just as being confused. At first, I was like, maybe this is that summer slump that I mentioned earlier at the top of things, but like when it comes to the Undertaker's allegiances and this obscene amount of focus on it, like I just don't give a shit, because it doesn't make sense to me. The Undertaker is a babyface. Why are he has done nothing and is doing nothing that is, or anything to indicate a heel turn. Kane sure as hell isn't doing a babyface turn. So like all of this is just, it's a bunch of incompatible pieces that they're trying to shove together, and I don't fucking care. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, it's them spinning their wheels before the Ministry of Darkness true turn for The Undertaker.
Yeah, and like I said, we know things pick up later, and I'm not sure if they have in the past talked about on some of the industry podcasts about their booking cycles and how they try to hit it big at the start of the year, hit it big at the end of the year, because in the summer, that's the old school way of doing things, because in the summer, nobody was watching TV, everybody was outside playing and blah, blah, blah. They kept their weaker booking for the summer, and I keep coming back to that a little bit, because how else do you explain the fact that a lot of this just doesn't make sense? So, I don't know. It was a fine episode, but anyway, Ryan, what'd you think of this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I thought this last match in the end was fine. It wasn't fantastic, but they did what they had to do to keep the belts on Kane and Mankind going into the pay-per-view, so that match between Undertaker and Stone Cold could have a little bit more juice to it, especially now with the Undertaker and Stone Cold having a disagreement at the end, with Undertaker helping Kane and then Stone Cold looking to help out the Outlaws. So you have that, but this wasn't, to me, this wasn't nearly as good as the actual win was earlier in the night. I thought they did that really well, but they fumbled this ending a little bit.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that what we want to see is Austin versus McMahon. And that's what the fans want to see too. And I feel like they have that on pause right now.
Yeah.
Because they're doing this Undertaker cahoots story to go along with it.
What was that again?
Cahoots.
Cahoots, okay, yeah.
But I want to put over the New Jersey crowd again, because there was a sign in the crowd that said, Nitro girls are hooers, spelled Hoowers. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
That is. Jack and Jill went up the hill.
This match was a real disappointment to me. Like this had a house show feel to it, with this enforcer gimmick that they were doing, trying to wedge in there. And especially since we already saw this match earlier tonight and it was good. It was really good. We talked about it before about how it did so much for everybody involved. And now you just do this. There wasn't even a winner. Like the ring just filled up with people and the show went off the air. And the best part of this was Mike Chioda taking those the best ref bumps that I've ever seen up to this point.
Highlight reel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think, once again, I think you guys have helped me clarify my thoughts on it. The setup for all of this, right? We're trying to build this tension towards Stone Cold and The Undertaker in a tag team match as a main event. You know what? That sounds like a hell of an episode of Raw. That does not sound like a very good pay-per-view. But that's what we're trying to build towards, and that's what's falling flat for me. This story that they've got going on is nowhere near interesting enough to prop me up for a fucking pay-per-view.
Well, it's been happening for years that it's the filler pay-per-view before SummerSlam.
In your house.
Yeah.
The in your house pay-per-view that is going to be bullshit.
Yes. Yeah. We've been seeing this nonstop for 3 years now, 4 years, whatever.
Yeah, good call. Well, as I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you take that first?
Well, my highlight is going to be the announcement of the end of the new Midnight Express tag team. And my low light is going to be just Dan Severn. I just thought he looked like absolute shit in a situation where he should not look like absolute shit.
My highlight is going to be the original tag team belt match when Kane and Mankind first won the belts off the Outlaws. I thought that was a good match. I thought it ended really well. I just really liked everything about that match and that storyline. I thought as far as storylines being pushed tonight, that was the best one. Low light, of course, is the Brawl for All, kind of following along with you, Joe. Dan Severn looked like shit. The first Brawl for All looked like shit. Anything that has to do with Brawl for All is garbage, and that was my low light.
Well, I'm sorry that you guys don't like the way that I was trying to box in the Brawl for All match. I'm a Greco-Roman wrestler, and I'm not used to that.
All right, so for my highlight, it was honestly hard for me, because I was down on most of this, but I am going to say that it ended up me being pleasantly surprised at how unobtrusive Shawn Michaels was on commentary. When he first joined at the start of the show, I thought it was really going to suck, but he did a great job of staying out of the way. He let JR and the King take what they could. He filled in the rest, chipped in when it was appropriate. I thought Shawn Michaels did a great job as the third man here.
You know what? I forgot all about him, and to your point, that's good.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because there was potential for a train wreck there. If he was heavy on the somas or whatever, it could have been horrible. My lowlights, it's pretty much falling in with you guys. Either one of the Brawl for All matches, take your pick. Even the winners look like shit coming out of these, and I can't believe that we've still got more of this in the future. So with that out of the way, Joseph, do you happen to have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around July 13th, 1998 for us?
I do. I had a nice break from reading Dave Meltzer's articles.
God.
But I'm back at it.
Of text.
Did your eyes go uncrossed? You didn't have to stare at that?
Oh, man, it was bad. But do you guys remember when Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman teamed up to face DDP and Karl Malone?
Yes.
Ugh.
That happened last night at Bash at the Beach, 1998, and it received a 78% thumbs down from the Observer readers.
Shock.
So, yeah, didn't go over too well. Speaking of WCW, Nitro broke WWF's 5-week winning streak with the July 6th episode of Nitro, and I would like to remind you guys that that was the episode when Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan for the title. However, WWF is back on top just 1 week later, so a lot of good that did for Eric Bischoff to give away Goldberg and Hulk Hogan for free. They won for 1 week, so that's unfortunate. Dave Meltzer decided to ruin my highlight this week and broke some news that the Midnight Express was actually back together the next night on July 14th at a house show. So
all for nothing.
We'll see what happens there. Dave Meltzer also had some comments about the Dan Severn versus Godfather match that I would like to read for you guys. This match was bad enough that it could be labeled a fiasco in every sense. Both because Severn apparently did not understand the concept, and even more so because of the nonsensical scoring and horrid commentary, which made it appear to viewers that Severn was losing, and then he was announced as a winner for no reason.
I don't know if I'd agree with him. I thought commentary made it pretty clear that Severn was winning.
Yeah, focusing on the points for the takedowns. Yeah.
Well,
whatever.
Yeah, that's what Dave had to say about that. Stone Cold Steve Austin had a photo shoot for the cover of TV Guide. You guys remember TV Guide?
Oh, yeah.
This is the first time that a wrestler will be featured on the cover of TV Guide, which I found to be surprising. Yeah, according to Dave Meltzer, Hulk Hogan appeared in TV Guide, but never on the cover of TV Guide.
I guess tied into that, just tonight, my wife, Kate, was watching on, I don't know what streaming service, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the 90s.
Yeah.
And I walk in, and guess who made a cameo as a barbarian from one of the Witch Worlds?
Was that Mick Foley?
No, it was Big Daddy Diesel.
Oh.
Showed up. And I get, because they were both on TBS, I think. So
okay. Yeah.
That was probably the tie-in there. But I saw him and I was like, oh, holy shit, Kevin Nash. Look at that.
Wow. Did he look like Kevin Nash or was he in like costume?
He was in costume, but he just looked like Kevin Nash in like leather barbarian looking clothing. Okay. You know what I mean? But still had the long hair, the goatee.
Huh. Well, on that same topic, Triple H, eat your heart out, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, because... Triple H will be on Pacific Blue on August 9th.
God, I forgot that show existed.
Yeah. I remembered Sabrina the Teenage Witch more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last piece of news here is that WWF will be adding a second primetime show for a test run in August from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock every Sunday night. What we now know as Sunday Night Heat. But this was the first announcement of that show, and we're only a month away from that show premiering. So I thought that was cool news there.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating as always. And for the record, while we probably will be watching SmackDown as long as Barry's able to keep his deliveries coming on time, we will not be watching Sunday Night Heat.
No, we will not be watching Sunday Night Heat. Sorry.
All right. Excellent. Well, that is it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most well-endowed Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on July 20th, 1998, with matches featuring Farouk, Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Oh, my goodness. And if I remember right, you're not going to be here. You're going to miss that.
We shall see. That's probably how it's going to. That's probably
We're
how it's going to play
as a
out.
cliffhanger.
You can't miss Dr. Death.
Come on now.
That's JR's boy.
I can only take witnessing so many careers get ruined. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.